It looks like another internal civil war is brewing amongst the Bitcoin community, and it's real bad for perception. It's real bad for PR, especially at a time when they're trying to go global with adoption. But then again, this core 30 verse knots to bickering is small right now, but it's definitely going to grow louder as more people realize that you really don't have sound money if you have to update the software or stay in sync with the same line of developers, regardless of whether you believe in it or not. Now, is that sound money? We're going to find out. But in the meantime, where does all this head? I believe that's worth touching on because it impacts you more than you actually realize, because it's ultimately linked to how this current administration succeeds or not. That's worth talking about. All right, so I want to take a minute to share some thoughts in reference to this whole Bitcoin bickering, as I call it, this internal civil war, where you have the core developers versus more of the cyberpunk type of framework on one side. And right now they're clashing. And so it's all centered around spam or being able to actually filter unwanted material on the network. But once again, there's nothing that can actually be done as to whether you implement one or the other, because it's still computer code that's open and available for data to be stored. But then again, the story behind this is what is suspicious to me, because once again, I look at this similar to how I did back in 2017 when it's the whole block size war. You have a special interest side of the community that want to push the envelope regardless of what the community says, and then on the other side, you have people who are originally here for the options and the alleged freedom and sovereignty that it was sold to them as. And then that's when everything collides. So as of right now, as you scroll through Twitter, every single podcast now has a comment as to what's more important, Bitcoin Knots or Bitcoin Core. And at the end of the day, the bigger question people should be asking themselves is that in the long run, is Bitcoin as an asset going to remain safe as more versions of the software is necessary to protect it from potential bugs, hacking, security, you name it? Ongoing things is going to be required in order to keep the network operational. And we're only on version 30. And it's only 16 years old. So imagine 5 years from now on version 45. Do you actually think that the real culprits behind this will not have some more sinister objectives that they want to impose on the community without actually checking what the people want? Right. I'll let you figure that one out. But the question is, what is the civil war that I'm talking about? So right now we're faced with clashing of two sides, the speed at which this potential update has come about. And so as I watch a lot of these podcasts here, majority of the people who are not technical have no clue as to what's going on here. They don't know if it's going to result in a hard fork. They don't know if it's going to result in a soft fork. Or they don't know what will happen if the knots chain continue to increase by people running nodes and choosing to use the knots software itself. And so once again, we're in uncharted territory because once again, this is all an experiment that has never existed before. So you got people putting trillions of dollars into software code, and we're only 16 years in. And the fact that there are some people to talk about Bitcoin is going to go here, it's going to go there. 100 years from now, we're going to be, and I'm like, we can't even get through 16 years without the potential of another civil war, which could eventually result in a fork, because Bitcoin was clearly hijacked a long time ago. And I believe right now what's clashing is the two frame of thoughts. You have corporate interests, which is more on the core side, and then you had a cyberpunk movement of people who want the code to be left alone and for it to be used as money, even though people don't really spend it. And so let me share with you how I think it's going to play out. There's going to be more bickering because there's no way of actually coming to an agreement as to what and how we arrived here at this point, where you got corporate interests versus the OG interests colliding. But what it does tell me is that the very fact that you have men that are able to control the fate of the security and the integrity of the chain with software updates will continuously be a problem from here on out, because at some point along the way, corporate interests will definitely put pressure on the individual developers or the core group of developers that carry the most weight. Then it's going to always come down to what node or what software you're going to run in your node at that time, because there's so much at stake now. There'll never be just a clear-cut answer, because everybody realizes that at the end of the day, the government does not want you to really be free. They don't really want you to have options out of their control. That defeats the purpose of this entire monetary paradigm that we're part of. And though many people want that, thought Bitcoin could provide that, but once again, it's computer code that must be maintained, upkept, and constantly using power 24/7 from here to the end of time, supposedly. And then the next part that people should really be concerned with is the fact that now is the big debate. Do you run your own node or not? Do you actually show your support for one or the other? And so we got Michael Saylor out here allegedly supporting the knots. We got all the other major maximists and influencers sharing their 2 cents. And so it looks like the knots are going to gain more momentum. But then again, you can't trust the knots either, because it's led by a single individual with a little small team of which you don't know his intentions either. And so no matter what, as long as you run a node, you're going to have to make a decision. And you might be able to get away with 1 or 2 times without needing to update the software. But at some point, you're going to have to give in and update at some point, because if not, your node won't keep up with the rest of the chain. So therefore, the consistency of all these nodes supporting the network will decrease over time. And therein lies a problem in of itself. It stands the risk of being more centrally controlled by the big boys to control all the mining rigs. And so the counterparty risk is what's being exposed now. So whether it's corporate interests or the OGs trying to keep things original, no matter what, in between all that, you have major counterparty risk. You have software developers, you got the miners, you got jurisdictions where energy costs might be a little bit different. You got the regulation, which could be favorable or not. The idea that there may not be a Bitcoin reserve, at least as fast as people want it, because it's obvious Donald Trump could really care less about a Bitcoin reserve. It's more so his advisors and those around him that have plans for cryptocurrency in general. Bitcoin just happened to be a part of it, because what disappointed everybody from the jump was the fact that it was a crypto reserve, which included a lot of other assets, not just Bitcoin. So already he's reneged. And then you have people on the social media sphere sharing posts like this that says Trump never planned to actually hold a Bitcoin reserve. The audit was a facade, a cover for internal reshuffling. And then there are 172 days without updates. Isn't an oversight, it's a deliberate silence. And so this person says something went down behind closed doors that they don't want to be tracked. So all of this around social media doesn't show confidence in this administration. But then there's a kick, because once again, he ran upon making America great again. And the only way America can be great again is if he and his staff create avenues to artificially stimulate the economy. And you better believe they're going to do that in a multitude of ways. And more importantly, crypto will be a part of it. So even if it's not Bitcoin directly, it's going to be a large assortment of cryptos that end up pumping. And if you really want to know which coins are going to be, more than likely, look no further than the World Liberty Financial Holdings, which as of now is about $10 billion. So in this conglomerate here, you have a private company that's backed by Donald Trump, Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and Barron Trump. And so ultimately the Trump empire is involved in this. And to get an idea what they're holding on to, you can just scroll down below and get a good idea as to what they're holding on to. And so even though Bitcoin is cooling off right now, there's a lot of internal bickering. There could be a fork. That means just more coins. You'll have to choose a side, whether it's going to be the core side of things, which is more Wall Street focused, or the OG side, which is more cyberpunk, sovereignty, freedom side of things. But ultimately, if the split occurs, you'll have two options to pick from. And then one will remain, one will be sold off. But unfortunately, this will be looked at as just round two of a civil war, and it's only 16 years. So therefore, expect a lot more, because it's software with all those counterparty risks in between that must be maintained or else. And so there you have Civil War 2.0, the bickering amongst the corporate side and the cyberpunk community clashing in between over something that is not solvable, because it's going to be spam on the network regardless. And we're not talking about real changes that matter. Talking about security, talking about quantum resistance, talking about making sure that security updates like this doesn't centralize things even more, and it incentivizes people to run their own nodes. But then again, having to run your own node the entire length of time of owning Bitcoin will have problems in and of itself. So the whole idea of having Bitcoin as the numero uno that everybody flocks into is dangerous. And then that leaves me with the very thought I want to leave you with, which is, at the end of the day, how sound is the money that you're dependent upon really? Because if it doesn't actually make a sound, it's not too sound at all, because there's counterparty risks between it's being created, you holding it, and eventually needing to spend it. And there is the difference between real sound money, which don't require software updates. But once again, I'm just sharing my 2 cents. As you can see, I'm overly biased towards the idea of tangible wealth first and foremost, and then everything else in the speculative nature comes second. But where do you stand? Are you not? Are you core? Drop a comment. Hear what you think.